Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joanne Bernal, and I'm the El Paso County Attorney. I'm happy to be here today. I have provided you with written testimony that I will not repeat or read into the record, but I want to summarize just a few of the reasons that I'm here today. First, I'm here on behalf of El Paso County Commissioners Court, who voted unanimously to strongly oppose the provisions of Senate Bill 9 and have asked me to come with their message that they can't afford this bill. They can't afford it. They believe it to be an unfunded mandate. They can't afford the training costs that will be associated if this bill is enacted. It would be wholly irresponsible of them to have county officers in their employ who are not adequately trained in federal immigration law and yet have the authority to exercise some of those federal immigration laws. So they can't afford those costs, and they ask that you please consider that. They especially can't afford the costs that will be associated with the lawsuits, which they are absolutely right to expect. 2 years ago, El Paso County was sued because one of its sheriff's deputies allegedly asked immigration questions on a bus. It resulted in a settlement of a federal lawsuit. Part of the settlement prohibits El Paso County sheriff's officers or any law enforcement officer associated with El Paso County to enforce federal civil immigration law. How this bill will affect our settlement agreement, we're not exactly sure, but we have already been informed that we will be sued if this bill goes into effect. As a constitutionally elected office holder, as a prosecutor, I want to individually express my strong opposition to this bill. I think a very real but unintended consequence is that the only thing this bill will do will be to empower the criminal element in our community, because the criminal element will have the ability to exploit undocumented people. As a prosecutor, I was elected to serve, to protect, and to prosecute those criminals that prey on documented and undocumented citizens of the state of Texas. I believe that this bill would interfere with my ability to carry out my constitutional duties of office, and I would strongly urge you to, although well-intended that it might be, to recognize that this bill will not create a safer community for those of us in El Paso, and in fact it will have the absolute opposite effect on our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Davis.
Commissioner, thank you for being here today. I've voiced I'm sorry, you're the county attorney. Even better, actually, to answer this question. There have been a number of concerns raised about the generality of the language in terms of what an officer would now be allowed to do. And others who have spoken have talked about the fact that their concerns are that they will find themselves in a situation where if they try to constrain an officer who is abusing this tool, that they'll wind up in expensive litigation where the officer will then sue the county or the municipality for basically prohibiting them from doing what they're authorized to do under this statute. I wondered if you had any...
I absolutely agree with that, and on a couple of levels. I employ peace officers myself, and those are certified peace officers. I have a policy in my office that prohibits my peace officers who are investigators from enforcing federal immigration law when they are out in the field helping assist on cases that I am prosecuting. This law would prohibit me from having that policy, but it would also prohibit me from effectively supervising and monitoring the activities of the peace officers who are operating under my supervision. So if I have been a catch-22 as an employer, I can decide that it is very important that when they work with the immigrant community to try to protect those victims, in my opinion, it is critical that they not bring up the immigration question. They're peace officers. If they find in the field that someone has violated the law, absolutely they should arrest him. El Paso is not a sanctuary for criminality. However, we are a community that protects every single person that lives in our jurisdiction. So as a lawyer, I am also the lawyer for the civil lawyer for the county commissioners in the county of El Paso, and we handle all of their employment litigation. The employer officer, whether it's the chief of police, the city, the county, or the sheriff of El Paso County, will be in a real catch-22. They'll have to decide whether or not to enforce their own policies, or essentially to have a peace officer carrying a weapon, deputized by them, yet allowing them to essentially set their own policy on a case-by-case basis, yet doing so under the name and authority of that office for whom they work. So it's an impossible employment situation, and I think it is rife with problems that is difficult for both the officer trying to understand what his or her job is, as well as for the employer that's trying to manage and supervise those employees.
Thank you. There's also a provision in the bill in terms of a person who has standing to bring a case to the Attorney General of Texas demonstrating that a jurisdiction has not complied with this provision. The person who has standing to do that is any citizen residing in the jurisdiction of an entity described by the beginning subsection, which of course are counties, cities, so on and so forth, may file a complaint with the Attorney General if the citizen offers evidence to support an allegation that the entity has adopted a rule, order, ordinance, or policy under which the entity prohibits the enforcement of these laws. What do you think the cost to the county might be if any person in the entire county of El Paso can file a complaint with the Attorney General accusing you of having even a silent policy, not a written one? What do you think the cost to the county might be in terms of having to defend yourself in the Attorney General's office?
Right. I think the cost would be tremendous, and it's noteworthy that in this particular section, ordinarily the county of El Paso is an arm of state government, and we have immunities and we have protection, limits on liability or immunity entirely from suit. In this case, this is an invitation for someone to disrupt the operation of county government and do so at, I think, which would be an enormous expense, the litigation costs, the cost of counsel, and the disruption to the police agency that's trying to enforce these laws.
Very good. Thank you.